There are some reports that the North Koreans have dropped leaflets over a South Korean island warning of an attack on soldiers stationed there. I was wondering if you have been in touch with the South Koreans about this. You know, typically North Korea does make good on a lot of these threats, so I'm assuming it would be kind of concerning.
I'm not sure this is actually confirmed. I'd refer you to the South Korean government for questions regarding the leaflet, and I'm happy to check with our folks to see if we have confirmation of it. As a general matter, our position hasn't changed, that North Korea will not achieve anything by threats or provocations, which we think only further isolate the DPRK and undermine international efforts for peace and stability in Northeast Asia. That in no way has changed. I'm happy to check with our team. I'm just not sure we can actually confirm those reports.
And then yesterday you were asked about Dennis Rodman's trip, and you said that you would check on whether there's been anybody from the State Department that's been in touch with him regarding the submarine.
We haven't been contacted by him about his trip to North Korea. I don't think we have in the past either. Obviously, we don't vet private citizens' trip, but we haven't been trips to North Korea.
Do you have an interest in talking? I understand that you haven't talked to him, but do you have an interest in talking to him before he goes? That perhaps, like, if he were to meet with the leader as he did last time, that he could be speaking from the same playbook that any American that goes to North Korea that you urge to talk about?
Well, we don't. Private citizens, we certainly don't vet their travel or have contact with them
vet their travel,
or have contact with them necessarily before they go. There wouldn't necessarily be a reason to, I don't think. I'm happy to check again with our team, but to my knowledge, that's not a discussion that's underway.
Small thing, can you just state for the record that Dennis Rodman is not a representative of the U.S. government in his trip to North Korea?
Absolutely. Dennis Rodman is not a representative of the U.S. government in his trip to North Korea.
What kind of a procedure someone like Dennis Rodman follows to go to North Korea?
I mean, on our end, there's not one. He has to, I'm assuming, get some sort of visa from them, but on our end, he buys a plane ticket and goes. Not anything that I would have to know about.
So do you talk to him, when he comes back?
We've always said we're open to talking to people when they get back, but we haven't with him, is my understanding. He hasn't reached out to us, and we haven't.
Is it because he doesn't want to talk to you, or you just have no interest in talking with the guy? You don't consider him a valuable source of any type of information?
I'm not sure what the reason is. I just know that we haven't had contact with him about his trip.
Do you have an opinion on him going there? Do you support him going there or oppose his decision to do it?
I mean, we have a travel warning in place for North Korea for U.S. citizens, so I think the travel warning probably speaks for itself, and I'll let that be the comment on our opinion on whether anyone should travel to North Korea.
But beyond that, doesn't it give some kind of worth to the North Korean government, which is just...
To have Dennis Rodman visit?
Yeah. I mean, in the eyes of the North Koreans, or maybe its neighbours. I mean, this guy the leader of North Korea, just executed in a rather beautiful fashion his uncle. And you've got this eccentric star going over to talk to him. I mean, surely that should raise alarms. Something is unhelpful.
You know what? Honestly, what raises alarms is exactly what you mentioned. I know it's amusing or maybe interesting to talk about Dennis Rodman, but I actually think the focus really should be on the brutality of the North Korean regime he's going to meet with. I mean, you're exactly right. We just saw an execution, a horrific act of brutality, and that's what we're focused on. And we're focused on working with our partners in the region to help get North Korea to a place where it will fulfill its commitments to denuclearize. We need to focus on what's really important here when it comes to North Korea, the horrible economic situation it's put its people under, not whether or not a former NBA star is going there to play basketball.
Isn't his trip going to give some propaganda value to the North Korean government, I guess?
I don't want to guess as to why they are hosting him there, or what. I don't think I would ever try to get in the head of the North Korean regime about why they do anything, quite frankly. Our position hasn't changed. Policy-wise, what we're focused on is working with our allies and partners in the region to get North Korea to live up to its international commitments.
Two things just on this. One is, are you aware of how the North Korean general who was executed was executed? You talked about how it was a horrific act of execution. I want to know if you know how
brutality.
He was... A brutality. Do you know how he was executed?
I don't. I'm happy to double check.
Okay, because I was wondering because
I just don't.
The U.S. government executes people quite routinely in some states.
I don't think we pull them out of political meetings and execute them for political reasons.
No. That I would agree with, but that's why I'm trying to figure out.
I'm glad you agree with that.
Although one never knows. But what I wanted to understand is whether your reference was to how he was physically executed, or just the fact that he was
executed? Well, certainly
executed?
the fact that he was, and that it was a political I mean, certainly that. I'm happy to check with their
Okay,
board.
and then one other, just small one on this. The executed man's wife did not appear at the celebrations of Kim Jong-un. Any comment on that? Do you?
It's my understanding. I don't think she appeared last year either. I'm not sure she did last year either. I'm happy to double check.
Okay.
I don't have any
not a
additional
big deal.
comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I follow up just to go back on Joe's point? I mean, this is there's a larger point here, which is that the State Department has in the past sponsored cultural exchanges with very reclusive regimes.
Absolutely.
You're not doing that in this case, but whether the State Department views this as a positive way to kind of approach this very reclusive regime in a different kind of way, or whether it sees it as conferring legitimacy by sending not only Dennis Rodman, but high-profile other athletes as well, and there's a documentary crew going along with them too.
Okay.
So this is quite a big production. So
I don't think we see it as either. Honestly, I don't think we see it in either way you described it. It really is a visit of a private U.S. citizen, not a representative of the U.S. government, to a regime where we have a travel warning in place where we tell people not to go there. I wouldn't characterize it in either way. We'll see what happens with his visit, and I'm happy to, I'm sure, talk more about it as it unfolds this week. But what we're focused on here isn't the visit of a private citizen. It's how we as a government can work with other folks in the region to help advance our policy goals. And I'm just not aware of any way Dennis Rodman fits into that, but I'm happy to check again with our team.
And then I wanted to follow up. Sorry, on something you said yesterday. You said that the regime is at a moment in time when it sort of faces a choice of whether to go on with business as usual, isolation, brutality, things of that nature, or come back in line with its international obligations, is something along those lines. But I wonder if you could elaborate on that a little bit. What do you mean by this being, why is this moment in time?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's not, I should clarify, it's not a unique moment in time, right? It's right, I was going to say, it's not a unique moment in time. But they do have a choice about what comes next, that we don't write it off. We don't say there's no coming back from the brink here. We say we have serious concerns and need them to come back in line with their international obligations. So, a relatively new, young leader. Clearly, the North Korean people are facing an incredibly dire economic situation that its own regime has put it under, and it's getting worse. And so I think that from our perspective, you're right, for a long time. But right now they are at a moment where if we need to see progress. They've committed on numerous occasions to denuclearize. We haven't seen progress on that. And other issues as well. So I think that's why we're going to keep working with China, Russia, other folks in the region, Japan, South Korea, on how to make progress in this issue.
Maria, yesterday, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon emphasized about his concern on North Korean human rights issues. And what is the United States destination of North Korean human rights issues?
Well, we remain deeply concerned about the human rights situation in North Korea, also the treatment of North Korean refugees. There's a whole host of human rights issues that we remain concerned about. We're going to keep working with other countries in the region and international organizations like UNHCR and the Human Rights Council to raise attention to the deplorable human rights conditions in the DPRK. And we were proud to co-sponsor earlier this year, along with Japan, the EU, and South Korea, a UN Human Rights Council resolution establishing a commission of inquiry to investigate human rights violations in the DPRK. I don't have the latest on that. I'm happy to check, but clearly it's something we're very concerned about.
I have another question. Do you have anything on a telephone conversation between Secretary Kelly and the Chinese Foreign Minister? And
I do. I did a little bit on this yesterday, but I'm happy to revisit it. Secretary Kerry did speak with Chinese the foreign minister. Excuse me, I'm tripping over my words here. On December 15th, the Secretary exchanged views on a wide range of key bilateral and regional issues, including the DPRK and the Middle East.
What is the contents of conversations?
Well, as you know, we don't read out the specific contents of diplomatic conversations, but suffice to say they discussed a wide range of issues, and they have a good working relationship and will continue to do so.
Sorry, last one for me on North Korea.
Yeah.
Secretary Kerry.
Don't make promises you can't keep.
Unless there's a follow-up, but I think this will be the last. Secretary Kerry mentioned that they're aware of a number of other executions, and when he was speaking with Martha Raddatz on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything more?
Let me
on
check
that?
with our team and see if I can provide details on
Is
that.
he is
I'm
he
happy to
talking
check.
about the ones that were last year, or is he talking in a more recent?
Let me check with our team about anything more recent. I'm just not aware
Can
of
we
it.
change?
One more.
Yesterday, in the ceremony specifically, there was remarks from the leaders that saying the United States is militaristically trying to squeeze North Korea to death, and they are prepared to fight back. Do you accept this perception?
Well, as I said earlier, North Korea doesn't achieve anything with threats, with provocations, or, quite frankly, with continued nuclear development. The economic situation the North Korean people are in right now is a direct result of what their government has chosen to spend its money on. Unneeded and unnecessary weapons and military systems that they don't need that would be much better spent on food for their people. So if they want to talk about the deplorable conditions in their country, they need to take a look in the mirror, quite frankly. We've been very clear what our goals are. It's to denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula and stability in the region, something, again, that the North Koreans have committed to on numerous occasions. So we will continue working with our partners in the region to advance our goals, which are based on what's good for everyone in the region, and that's stability and security.